We'll start off with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Yes, we do. You got the roll. Okay. Did anybody hear from Rick?
I have not heard from Rick. I'm wondering if he's.
I can't.
Usually been some kind of last minute. I don't see him.
There's Barbara. Okay, we'll move on to the minutes of August 16th. Do I have a motion? So moved. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussions, corrections, additions? Hearing none, all of in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The minutes from August 16th are okay. Is there any public comment?
The only member of the public, I believe, is Mark Caldarella. Mark, if you have anything, raise your hand.
Is somebody else there too?
Steve Consola. And Steve Consola. Use the raise your hand function if you'd like to make public comment. So you can always come back. There's only two.
Okay, then we will move on. Does somebody wants
to call in.
Okay, we will have the treasurer's report.
Okay, good evening. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. I like that. All righty. Excuse me. All right, so we will start with our executive summary, your first page of your treasurer's report. So fiscal year to date, the town has received revenue of $26,783,882, or excuse me, 55.4% of the total amount of our $48,377,698 budgeted for fiscal year 23. When comparing our performance to last fiscal year, we are slightly ahead of this time last year by 0.5%. Next, we'll move down to our authorized investment section. At the end of August, the town had 38 million in its bank accounts. In the last month, the stiff rate has stayed steady. The average last month was 2.20, and today it's currently 2.30%. The investment committee, as always, is reviewing our bank rates, as well as cash needs to determine if we can switch some funds to stiff. And if we do, as always, we can get these funds out with a one-day notice. During the month of August, the investment committee sent an additional $12 million to stiff. This active management of funds, the difference between the Webster return of 1.53% and the stiff return of 2.20%, increased the returns for the month by about $4,000. Webster Bank will pay us the stiff rate in arrears, so we expect to see movement in that rate next month as well. Interest received in July totaled $20,366. The town does not book monthly interest until the bank reconciliation is completed, but the estimate is an additional $26,000 for August. That would bring the first 2 months of the year to $46,000, exceeding the full year's interest for last fiscal year, which came in at just under $45,000. So I think we're doing very nicely.
I have a question?
Yes.
Leanne or Barbara. So the Fed doesn't, the Fed is going to raise rates, we know, at the next meeting. But assuming we get on a zero trajectory where rates are gonna stay the same at the Federal Reserve. And Webster in arrears finally catches up to the STIF rate. Is there any reason why we would keep funds in STIF as opposed to Webster? Assuming Webster gets to the STIF rate?
Probably not.
Yeah.
It's easier for us to keep the money at Webster because
Right.
then it's there.
Right.
So, we're just doing it to arbitrage basically right now, so.
Okay.
Right.
I would
Right.
prefer to Webster, if everything, all else being equal.
Good.
I agree with Leanne. We're just trying to make as much as we can while we can.
Yeah.
Take advantage of the bad market for people personally, but a good market for the town. So now we'll move on to our pension plan. As of the end of August, we received our report from Morgan Stanley, our town's investment manager, about the performance of the two plans, the town and the fire department. The town pension plan is up 2.53% fiscal year to date versus its benchmark of 2.48%. Over the 3-year horizon, the town plan has returned 5.56 versus its benchmark of 5.27%. The fire department pension plan is up 2.11% fiscal year to date and has returned 5.41% over the 3-year horizon versus its benchmark of 5.27%. Any questions? Okay, so we'll go to the budget report revenue. Well, actually, before that, we'll just go over. Overall, the treasurer's responsibility is to oversee all the monies belonging to the town. So as of July 31, our total cash balances were 38 million. Our pension balance was 24.6 for total assets under management, 62.6 million. And then we'll move to page 2 of our treasurer's report with the revenues broken out into more detail. Excuse me. Tax revenues were 3,275,442 for the month, bringing the fiscal year-to-date total to 26,458,840, or 56.5% of the amount budgeted for fiscal year 23. In terms of local revenues, the town collected 180,474, with building permits and recording fees again being the primary drivers in local revenue, with Harvey's Beach and mini golf doing very well again in August. So overall, for the month of August, the town collected 3,455,916 in local revenue, or 55.4% of our fiscal year 23 budget. Does anybody have any questions? And that's all I have to report tonight. Thank you.
So I'll just make a quick comment, if I may, Mr. Chair.
Sure.
Over 11 years, chasing the treasurer's investment revenue has been interesting, because back years ago, I think we were budgeting, I want to say up to 150,000 for revenue. And that was when we had less money in reserves. We have more money in reserves, and you can see last year we made 45 grand. This year, we're certainly going to make a lot more than that. I don't know that the Fed is going to do it. They're talking about lowering, we're going to raise them now, break inflation, and then they're going to lower rates next year because the economy is going to need a little pickup. But, so we make our budget back in March, April. And so it's hard to project where interest rates are going to go. But for now, we are sitting, what are we projecting this year for treasurer's revenue?
75,000.
75. We did raise it a little bit, but we're going to far exceed that, obviously. we'll probably exceed it within the first third of the year, if not the first quarter of the year. We'll come close to it.
Well, hopefully, but
Yeah,
all of this tax money is gonna start going out.
yeah, right. That's true
Go
too.
back,
Make
so-
less money, yeah, right.
And we had a big push at the beginning of the year. It's not, we're not gonna have that trend is not
Right.
gonna continue.
That's, of course, that's
Yes.
right, because the money goes down because we're spending it, but then we'll get the second half in January and it'll go up again, but we are going to exceed
Mhm.
our revenue projections on treasurer's revenue.
Any questions for the treasurer? Okay, then we will move on to the finance director.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm starting on page 1 with the changes since last time we've met. And just to note that the ratification of the ARPA funds was approved at town meeting, which included 12,800 in new appropriations for ARPA, 10,000 for the estuary, and 2,800 for the Lions Club. Also, you approved a budget transfer of 321,021, subject to town meeting, which this has not gone to town meeting yet. It will be transferred into the pension reserve fund. So that's on hold for the moment until we get that to town meeting. Page 2. Talking about, we've had a lot of activity in our cash flow summary. So for the month of August, the town is down $1.4 million. Obviously, our tax receipts tailed off. That is due to 1.7 million in the general fund, of which we had $3.5 million in revenues, which Barbara just discussed, offset by 5.2 million in expenditures. Now that 5.2 million is high, as you know, I'm always saying between 3 and 4 million. Well, we had our largest debt service payment, about 2.2 million. We paid debt service in July, a small piece in July, a larger piece in August, and then again in January and February. This is by design. We kind of line it up with when we get our tax revenues in. So that did make that seem a little bit higher than normal for the month of August. And by the way, it says, thank you to Bruce for pointing this out. It said during the month of March, my cut and paste error should be during the month of August. In terms of capital funds, we're down 267,000. That had to do with one of the large capital projects that we've been working on for a long time, and that's like the high school lights. We paid out $289,000. You can see the lights are up. Also against that, we received in $37,000 in police vehicle payments for 3 cars that were sold. We didn't have major activity in the reserve funds, but if you take a look at the non-major funds, we're up. We had an increase of $676,000. To that end, we received another $121,000 in FEMA funds for our COVID-19 account. And we received $509,000 ARPA funds. We still have one more tranche to receive for our ARPA funds of $972,000. That will give us our second tranche of almost 1.5 million, and all told just under $3 million. So we've already received the first tranche last June. I don't know why they're separating this, but they are because one is a town grant, one is a county grant. We don't have copies. So they're just doing it in two separate lots, but I haven't seen that 900,972 just yet. So that's the cash flow. In terms of debt service, I just wanted to point out that I still have the debt service reserve at 312,821. Once it goes to town meeting, that's going to be hopefully be repositioned to the pension reserve fund. In terms of capital outlays, moving down, the only thing worthwhile noting that occurred this month is under fire apparatus. The new balance is 71,000. We did make our one of our payments for our 10-year loan for the fire trucks of just under 108,000 came out just a few days ago. So everything else I think remained about the same. We haven't had a lot of activity yet. People spending their new capital. I think they're still in the planning phases, but I do expect we'll see some movement on some of those projects in the near future. And then capital expenditures for fiscal year 23. These are the amounts that are not off budget, but on our budgeted account. So far, only the fire department has spent $49,000. That was towards the new vehicle purchase. And then our pension plan, our actuarial defined contribution was $789,000. We've actually paid $838,000. The town paid its budgeted amount of $664,000, and the school, since we changed the way that we did it, whatever they had in their budget line item, they also paid. What we had done historically is every time we'd have a payroll, depending on who was working and who wasn't, they would put that money aside in that form. So this will be a little bit more equitable for them too, year over year, when we come to next year, because their actuarial payment is expected to be higher than it was this year. And then finally, once the pension reserve is known, then we will put that in the bottom bucket there. And I didn't have any comments in particular on any of our line items. It's only been 2 months. Just to say that during the first couple of months, we do transfer everything off the off budget accounts and make payments and things like that. So it does tend to look a little bit higher than it will for the rest of the year, but there's nothing unusual in any of our expenditures. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Is that 49,000 for the fire department, the SUV that the chief hit us for?
Yes,
Did you get it?
yes.
I thought there was a cap on that. I didn't realize it was that high.
That might, I don't know the answer to that question. That might be some outfitting or something like that. Some other things come out of that capital line.
It
item as
wasn't,
well.
the car was 39. Remember?
Right, that's why I'm wondering what the extra money is.
I can ask.
What happens to the old one?
I'll find out.
If it got passed down, what happened to that old one?
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
If that one got passed down, what happened to that old one? Yeah,
Yeah.
right, it's not. I just want to hear the change. What was that number about the police vehicles that we sold?
37,000 for 3 vehicles.
What's going on with the rest of them?
I think that they're still being auctioned off. So this account is still live. They're still spending money. They're still selling vehicles. It's not over yet.
Why are they spending money while the cars are out?
I'm not sure exactly what they would be spending on. They're pretty much done, but there could be other things that they need to outfit the cars with. So I just don't know the answer specifically to that.
Yeah, I'm a little concerned with the numbers that I was seeing that was sent over, in all honesty, $7,000 for the installation.
So I did find a little something else out about that, and that is that in those numbers, the 7,000 included a lot of those other things that you were wondering about, like I'll just pass this over to the computer, the software, all of those other things is included in some of those things. So they all went through that account,
Including the new radios.
including the radios, I think are in here. So let's see. Prisoner cages, computer installations, etc., are in those invoices. They were purchased and installed from the same vendor. All warning equipment was donated by Whelan Engineering and installed by our vendor. An invoice for each vehicle was generated by the vendor Strobes. And then mobile radios were not part of the project and were purchased with the police operating funds with the knowledge of the police commission and the first selectman.
Really? That's a huge amount of money.
For what?
10 vehicles, 10 new radios? You're looking at $6,000 to $8,000 worth of radio per vehicle
For radios.
for radios. And he's selling them all in those old cars.
you get it from him. Okay,
It's not what, this is all above and beyond what he agreed to. This isn't part of the package.
well, I'm not arguing with you there in terms of, I don't know the details on that. In terms of, I know the project itself is on budget, exactly what he intended to spend, so there's no difference in that. And the revenue on the old cars is gonna be, it exceeds what we expected. So
Well, and that's good for us as
Right.
the town, but I'm
Right.
just, it just shows how inflated those numbers were then. If he's able to come up with.
So there'll be a complete accounting of everything in terms of the radios. I mean, you know way more about that than I do, okay? So.
Okay.
Are there any other questions for the finance director? Okay, hearing none, we will move on to item number 8.
So this is something that I know Matt was discussing with the chief of police. The chief was out sick last week with COVID, so I had sent him an email asking him for an explanation, maybe a narrative on how successful, if at all, buybacks have been in other communities, what they look like. And I didn't get that yet, so instead of taking action, I'm suggesting we were gonna take these funds from surplus. If this board at some point were inclined to appropriate the funds for this amount, number one, it could be a different amount or no amount. And you could take it from capital non-recurring, you could take it from another fund. I hate to have it come through just the board of selectmen without some input from the chief of police if he is interested in the program. And I think maybe it could wait for that reason. I mean, there's no urgency to this, obviously. It's not as if there was an event and we decided that this was a good idea. The way it's been explained to me is, and very briefly, that perhaps there's someone who wants to remove a gun from circulation entirely. They don't want to sell it to a dealer. They just don't want it in circulation anymore. It's an old gun. They are happy to turn it over and get $200. I'm not looking for comment on it. Maybe I'm asking the Board of Finance to consider tabling it until we get other input on this from the chief, which I've requested. And it could be via memo, it could be via Zoom that he comes in. Just a thought.
Isn't the chairman of the police commission coming to the next meeting as well?
Yes, he is.
Oh, that's right.
Could we invite the chief and
Well, I think,
have 2 agenda items?
I would think the chief would probably be here if that's happening, but yeah,
So I mean, we could.
Yeah, that
do
might
this
make
and the
sense.
previous
might make sense. Yeah.
discussion. We could do it all at once.
Or two separate items.
Well,
Yeah,
right.
right,
At the same meeting.
yeah. Yeah, Tom?
Go ahead.
Like John was just reminding me about a lot of these people that come before us want money. We have failed to ask them for a timeline, when this is going to be accomplished and what do you have for dates and things.
Mhm.
So if this in fact even goes further, whether or not, where's the timeline that the police commission is talking about?
Yeah.
And where's the plan? Where's the documents that,
Yeah.
that indemnify the police chief and the other people touching and handling those guns for any further actions?
Yeah.
I'd like to see all that stuff before I.
Yeah, there might be a little bit more detail to any kind of a program. It was an idea, it came forward.
Sure.
Whether this board even considers it at a later date is up to you. But I think a little bit more input might be better. Is that okay?
It is. The only thing I'm really concerned about is the town, I don't believe should be competing with gun dealers. There's a gun dealer who puts an ad in the New London Day currently buying guns. there's two ads
Yeah.
weekly in the Harbor News of two people buying guns. One guy will even come to your house. Guns are not really an issue in this state. There were 209 deaths recorded a couple of years ago, which is the latest facts. 66 of them were suicide. So that leaves you down to about 140. Yet last year, there were 1,531 deaths of drugs. That's the issue in this country right now. It's drugs. We all know where they're coming in from. And we all know what the problem is. There's people out there that are trying to say guns are a problem. The problem in this country is fentanyl and drugs. And there's a package of Skittles that you can buy that's spelled with the same letters, except at the end there's a Z. They're fentanyl.
Right.
And they were getting sold at parties for kids, etc., or given to them. And this is what's killing this country, is the drugs. The guns, when they're turned in, I can show you articles. They're turned in, they're broken, they're obsolete, they're rusted, they don't even work. They're getting nothing but garbage guns, and we're paying for them. And we're not, the town isn't here to buy crap. The town is here to provide goods and services, but we should be providing, or looking at the major problems in the state, which is drugs. So I don't even know if it's necessary to table it. I think that it's just crazy. The drugs are 6.5 times more of a problem than the guns. So
I think, I know that there's been a lot of research done by Matt Puglisi on this. I know he's had conversations with the chief, and I think it's worth hearing from them before we decide what we want to do. So I think tabling it, going to the next meeting, giving the people who have the background on this the opportunity to talk about why this is good, where it's happened in other places, the success, those kinds of things would be important. So I think that's what we ought to do.
well, there is no, I can show you many articles, there is no success.
My understanding is that it was recently done in the town of Clinton and it was done successfully. So we can have a disagreement on that just based on, but my information is hearsay.
Okay, hearing, or unless anybody else has a comment. I
Well, I
will,
would just like to say, I agree with Bruce that we definitely should listen to the experts in the field, not denying your expertise, Brad. But I'd like to see both sides of the story. And I'd make a motion to table this.
could I just ask you to hold up on that a second, because a motion to table is not debatable and it cuts off debate.
I know, that's why I said it.
And I just want, if anybody else wants to say anything
Oh.
before we do it. If anybody else,
I spoke to a former FBI guy, and he told me that the guns that they're getting from these cities are crap. And, you know, why are we paying for crap? And it's just, you know, put the attention on the drugs if you want to do something. That's the real.
Well, I don't think they're mutually exclusive. I mean, they're both major issues.
Well, it's 6.5 to 1.
Well,
The
that's
drugs
true,
is
but I don't know what the
6.5
numbers-
times the problem than the gun. So. And it's really, you know, I'll be very blunt, it's a party issue. Let's talk about where the drugs are coming from and where the issue is.
I don't think you want to go there.
I'd love to.
I don't think.
shouldn't I have the motion to table it on its appropriate?
So moved.
Do I have a second? Okay, all those in favor of tabling signify by saying aye. Opposed? Okay, the motion
Wait,
Tom opposes.
Yeah, okay.
opposed to tabling.
Yep.
Yeah, okay. Chair, if I could just ask you that on next meeting's agenda, you just list that on the agenda as a tabled item.
Yes.
Okay,
If I may also ask, maybe put that on prior,
Old business,
what,
old business.
old, well, but I was gonna say prior to the chairman's,
Put in the head.
Come in, yeah.
Of course.
because if they're gonna, I have a feeling it'll be a little bit of a quicker discussion. By the way, on the drug thing, the town received about $7,000 from the opioid settlement that's going on. I don't know if we're gonna be getting more money, but we received about $7 grand from the state of Connecticut. You had to register, and I kept getting emails and I kept pushing them over to Leanne until Leanne got us registered. We got a check-in for $7,000. I've contacted Heather and Sue Consoli, and we're gonna meet this Friday, I believe, to discuss possible prevention topics that how we would use the funds in our community to talk about prevention and prevent either dispersion of drugs or overdoses for that matter. So just
Do we know what the basis for the 7,000, percentage or?
I think it was formulaic. but I don't know. the
it is
formula.
formulaic. I doubt it has to do with deaths in the community. It might be population, it might be, I'm not sure. I could ask.
No, it's just- maybe it's related to the number of arrests based on narcotics.
I don't know.
What are the
Here's
stipulations
one.
about those?
Heather and Sue are aware of this whole settlement, so we'll talk to them about it. But it's very much for education.
Carl, one question with regards to that. Do you know if the schools have been trained in Narcan?
I don't.
I would suggest that you use some of that money to get them trained and get Narcan in the schools, because that will make the difference between somebody's life and not. As much as people don't like to hear it, it's a reality in today's world, and they should be trained in it. Because the delay will kill them. Yes, the cops carry it, but the difference between a
Right.
cop getting there and not, you can't hurt anybody with Narcan.
Rick, wouldn't the resource officer have one? I mean, I'm curious.
I'm saying
think
the
they
school
carry it,
because
right?
I'm thinking after school, I'm thinking ball games, I'm thinking on the bus, I'm thinking. Have more than, the more people that are trained, the better. I carry a case in my truck, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
But I deal with it on a daily basis. But I think everybody should be trained in it.
I believe they would be carrying it. Every cop has it on them. There also is a best buy date on Narcan, right? You know that. So it's not an inexpensive endeavor. I know we all they carry it here.
I can get you a supply if you need something.
We don't need it. I'm not asking you. for
I'm saying
supply.
if finances are an issue.
No, they're not.
All right.
It's part of the budget, but I know. All right, so I'm gonna get some of the answers to those questions that were just asked on that, but we did receive some funds on that. Next time,
Yes.
Whisper Cove. Do you guys all know where Whisper Cove is? River Road, you got River Road and there's a development up on the right. Actually, yeah. It was not developed for the longest time after 2008. And then all of a sudden the houses exploded up there. And they're beautiful, they have beautiful views. And there was an open space provision put in there by planning. And there is I have no idea where you park to use this trail, to use this pathway. But it's a pathway that goes down to the water and there's a bench. And it's quite beautiful. People do use it, but the fence is falling apart. Speaking of timing on this, one of the homeowners who has repeatedly called about the condition of the fence, she has vegetation growing all into it. So I've already gone back and forth with her because they're hydrangeas. I said, when would you like this project done? In the fall or in the spring? What is best for you and your gardener? And because she's
She
gonna.
cuts them back, yeah.
What's that?
She cuts them back.
Yeah, well, she has to for us to be able to put in the fence. Fence is our obligation. It's falling apart. It's been a problem. We've made some repairs over the last 3 years. 300 here, 400 there. It needs to be replaced. It's falling apart.
Which side do we own?
Both.
We own
I mean,
both sides
it's
of
a
the fence.
pathway and there's a fence on both sides of it.
One is mold covered, the other ones look like it's new.
It's not new. There may be pieces of it that are newer, but it is not new. I guarantee, I know that for a fact.
And none of this is mugwort up there.
Well, I'm sure there's mudboard up there, Tom. That's an inside joke. We won't go into that. What was I gonna say?
Is that a right of way or is it a pathway?
It's a So it's open space that was deeded basically to the town, or it's an easement that was granted to the town. So people could go down and enjoy the view.
How many of those are there in town?
Yeah, would you be setting precedents if you did this one?
No, I mean, we have an obligation to do this. I mean, we have an obligation to maintain the fence. It was put up as a condition of the open space.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry if I didn't make that clear.
But not every location
No.
similar to this has that obligation.
Absolutely not.
Because there's a lot of right of ways over in Cornfield Point I know about, but
I've been there recently.
I just don't know if, are we set, I mean, if it's in the
So
paperwork.
with
that's
some of
one
the road endings in Cornfield Point, the homeowners frequently maintain their bushes and hydrangeas that are over there. Anthony's, I think through Larry, we contract to do some of the road ending mowing. But the homeowners have been very good about cutting their bushes down in Cornfield Point. There's kind of a happy medium there between the two sides. The town has road endings, as you know, as everybody knows here, I mean, all over town.
I was just concerned you were starting a precedent.
This is
for
not a
The
precedent.
mall one.
No. No. We are not putting up a new fence. We are replacing it. So it's been really needed to be done. We got 3 quotes. It's an under $25,000 job. First quote was 19, second quote was 15, third quote was 14. I'm asking for 15.
Timeline.
How long of a fence is it?
It's 900 feet of fence.
It's a long way down.
Whoa.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, 450 aside. It will be done this fall. I already was in touch with the contractor. I said it has to go to town meeting. You're talking probably an October job, and he's like, that's perfect.
Do you know
So
what kind of fence? Is it gonna be split rail like that?
it's split rail. It is not pressure treated because pressure treated is like a year out. That's what,
What about cedar?
How about
Cedar,
treating it
yes.
with stain,
I'm sorry?
preventative stain?
Uh,
It'll greatly increase the life. You should do it before you even put it up.
I could ask and see, that will be extra. There's no doubt.
Well, I'll probably last you twice as long.
Really?
Yes.
What?
Well, just think about a house if you don't paint it and it's raw wood versus a house that's stained. Thank you.
Can look into that.
Is Dan gonna supervise this one?
Yeah, Dan's been out there a lot over the years. Your buddy,
Dave does a good job.
he's been out there. Dan's been out there, fixing railings that are just falling off
Okay.
and falling over. And instead of doing a patchwork job, I'm like, it needs to be replaced. And it's not overly expensive. It'll last for another 15, 20 years.
25 if it's stained.
I'll have Dan out there standing.
Yeah.
900.
No, you really should do it beforehand.
Yeah, no, you have to do it before.
And you do it with a roller, it's pretty quick.
Can you ask for volunteers?
Are you volunteering?
Good citizen of the community.
Carl, Tom had a good question about the responsibility of the homeowners for caring for the branches, because when you go down there, one part of it was totally blocking the pathway. And then those bushes that she's has hanging over.
They're gonna be cut back.
Do we cut it?
No.
We don't. Who
She's
cuts it?
gonna, that's her, those are hers.
Okay, but we cut the grass going down, right?
Yes, Freddie does that, yep.
Okay, so they don't touch any of the bushes, our guys.
No.
Parking lot.
It's not Park and Rec, Freddie, Freddie
Freddie
Castro,
Castro?
yeah, we sub it out.
So the homeowner has no responsibility for blocking the pathway.
Well, I mean,
Saying-
their bushes should not grow over. If they grow over, we would have the right to cut it back. And I'm sure Freddie has, probably cut branches that have grown over, but are you saying they're?
Oh,
they're-
there's one is totally blocking.
Okay,
I mean, right from the ground across,
okay.
and the other bushes are just hanging over.
Well, when this goes in, we'll obviously make it like it's brand new again. Because her bushes will be cut back, So we'll cut back anything else that's in the way.
We're gonna have a blessing of the fence?
We will.
Okay.
Apparently, there's no designated parking up there either, so you either have to park.
It's very
or
difficult.
up in a cul-de-sac.
I mean, it's not the only, all the Cornfield Point road endings are the same way. There's no parking.
North Cove ending also, Cromwell and North Cove Road.
Yeah, but there's parking close by anyway. Somewhat close by.
You can park at Whisper Cove.
Yeah, just
I park there, no problem.
Whisper Cove?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can, okay.
North Cove.
I thought there were no parking
Whisper
signs
Cove.
there, but there's nothing. There's no sign.
You're right, you park on the street.
Right.
Yeah.
There's actually a sign right out on the main.
Well, you guys all went out
road
there.
that says coastal access.
That's one of
And then there's another sign
the.
right there.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have photos, John.
What?
I have photos.
Before I ask for a motion, it says, from the fiscal year 2022 surplus, didn't we all transfer all that money into various accounts?
Not yet, it hasn't gone to town meeting, so
Oh.
you still have a chance to do
Oh,
a
okay.
little more work here if you'd like.
Okay. Would we then have to change any of those other things we did?
Just the capital non-recurring because you tabled the other items, so
And we-
Okay,
that's the only one,
all right.
nothing else.
Okay, then can I have a motion?
I just have a question. Is there a definite time limit on that job, Carl, on the contract?
I haven't signed the proposal yet
Okay.
because I'm waiting for authority to do it. So we have agreed we're gonna do it this fall.
Because Tommy brought up that point a couple of years ago. We had this issue with the park and rec down at
Yeah,
Gardner's Point. It took them 3 years to do that job.
so you're not gonna have,
Some kind of an ordinance or something. I forget what it was.
you're not gonna have this issue with the job unless the contractor doesn't do it. Unless I can't get him to do it. Now, he said he can do it. He's a local guy. Larry gave me his number. Because I needed a few other references, so. Like Fence World, Custom Fence, and Atlas Fence were the three that were called. I think I sent those. to you.
You did.
So I make a motion to approve the action of the Whisper Cove Road fence.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, is there any further discussion?
Yeah, I have further discussion in reference to what John was saying. Are we gonna have a contract that has a penalty in it like we did for Route 1 with the state sidewalks coming across? Or you think this is local enough that we don't need to do that? Okay.
Probably not, yeah.
Any other?
If he doesn't do it, we'll just go to the next guy.
You sure you're not on the fence about that, Carl?
Repeat?
Are there any other questions?
Don't encourage him.
Any other questions you want to quote each other?
Right.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The
All those
homeowner,
opposed?
the homeowner will be happy.
Okay, motion has passed. Selectmen report.
Oh, yeah, why don't we, add, there'd be a motion for the capital, to add to the agenda an amendment to the amount that will go into the capital non-recurring fund, as a result of fiscal 22 surplus.
So reduce it by the 15,000.
Well, I can give you the motion.
Give me the motion.
So that would be that would be a motion to add to the agenda. To appropriate, 366,800, well, that's actually the motion. Oh, 374, you're at, okay. So you're adding to the agenda, a revision to the amount going into the capital non-recurring account from the fiscal year 22 surplus. That would be the motion to add to the
Send that to
agenda.
me.
Do-
Okay, man.
Do I have a motion to amend the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And then the proposed motion, go ahead, why don't you just read it?
To rescind the Board of Finance motion made at its August 16th, 2022 meeting to appropriate $366,824 into the capital non-recurring account from the town surplus for fiscal year 2022. Further, to appropriate $374,030 from the town surplus for fiscal year 2022 to the capital non-recurring fund through 3350. Further, to move the transfer of surplus of funds to town meeting.
What numbers are gonna be?
That would be 9A.
So I will move what Leanne said.
Okay. Well put. Do I have a second to what Leanne said?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes. Selectmen report.
All right, so with that, we're probably gonna close the books on FY 22 town financials after we go to a town meeting. Once and for all, that'll be done. So we are planning to put up the new gazebo that was authorized in the FY 22 budget in October after the art show, which is the first weekend in October. We've designed, Larry's gonna do some of the, he's gonna do the base, so I think we discussed it, is the gazebo is going to be at grade. There's going to be no railings on it. There's going to be, I think, some, about 5 posts, but you'll be able to access it at grade, essentially. It won't flood, it's gonna be slightly above. And then in front of that, we are going to put a patio in front of the gazebo, and we're going to connect that patio to this sidewalk that runs around town hall. So it will be entirely handicap accessible. And I think it will be a super nice addition. So that all will happen in October. I told Larry they plan on delivering this gazebo in October. So that work needs to be done. So I told Larry, if we need to hire additional crew to assist him in getting this done quickly, Bill Layden, who does all our sidewalks, said he can have a couple of my guys. Larry also has a guy that has helped him over the years to assist him with the installation of the concrete. But that should be happening in October. A week ago Saturday, I was at the Catherine Hepburn annual fundraiser, the gala. It was just really great. Martina I just mentioned this just because it's of interest. So Martina Navratilova was interviewed by Mary Carrillo on stage at the gate. I mean, 2 pretty big superstars there. And I have to tell you, Martina Navratilova was absolutely amazing. She is just an incredibly genuine person. Seemed thrilled to be here and receive this award. She actually had a connection with Catherine Hepburn, where they, talked tennis, they wrote notes to each other. She visited her multiple times in New York and a couple times here in Old Saybrook. So after the interview on stage, Mary Carrillo asked anybody in the audience if there was a question. And this one lady raised her hand and asked the question, when you left Czechoslovakia, what gave you the courage to do that, knowing, Czechoslovakia at the time, that you may never see your family again? And, she started crying on stage. It was just absolutely incredible. She was just one of the most natural, nice people, no airs about her at all. It was just, I thought it was great. Very successful event, really, and Senator Richard Blumenthal was there, the governor and Andy Lamont were there, so a lot of attention on the Cape that night. We mentioned some of the revenue that was coming in earlier this year. Tom Makowicki sent me an email about 2-3 weeks ago and said, I thought it would slow down a little bit with a little bit of a rise in interest rates and, maybe the end of the summer, but he doesn't see anything slowing down. So that's good for building revenue. It's good to keep our fire marshal busy, obviously. And this week, will be the first game at the high school under the lights. What's that?
The girls.
I didn't hear what you said.
Didn't they play a game recently?
I don't know that they played a game already, did they?
I thought it was the girls still have.
I thought that was yet to be played this week. I thought that was the first game. We went there for a trial, I think a week ago Monday, about 8 o'clock. We all went over there and I was standing in the end zone facing Ingham Hill Road with the high school to my back. And with the lights on, I looked to my left and you could not see beyond the track. That's the cutoff on these is amazing. And more amazing, they were shipped, they're put up, and that's it. There's no adjustment. Like they are able to put in the specs at the factory. So when they go up, they're exactly as they should be. And, the guys who dig the holes and lay the poles, I mean, everything is that exacting, which I'm amazed by. I'm not saying that you're not going to see a glow from the lights, but you will not see the light source from Ingham Hill Road. Now, there's still other work that needs to be done. On the Ingham Hill Road side, we need to plant trees. We've already put in a fence. Some of the neighbors' concerns were that a lot of people gather to watch games and on Ingham Hill Road and park there. And for them, they thought that was a bit of a nuisance, and I understand why they would think that, and certainly as at a night game, that would be worse. So cars can no longer park there, and we will be installing planting arborvitaes, I think like 34 of them, quite a few over there. We also, as a result of the zoning approval, have to plant a whole new bunch of trees on Route 1. The high school changed a lot of their lighting on the school, so the high school is now dark sky compliant with their lighting. The lights themselves are dark sky compliant, and we will be receiving I think it's about a $12,000 Eversource rebate because they're LED lights and they're super efficient. So in addition to all that, we're getting $12,000 from Eversource to go towards this cost. So that is,
When they're planting those trees, are they out by the street?
they're going to be inside the fence. They're going to be right along the fence line for the field.
Okay, I thought you were talking about Route 1.
Well, there's going to be more trees planted on Route 1 also.
The only thing I'm concerned about is visibility to the school.
We have, I mean, like
Who's we?
zoning required it.
Required?
Yeah.
I'm just concerned that when the trees grow bigger, that
Yeah.
you won't be able to see the.
Well, you're right. You will have less visibility to the field, but
I
there
don't
won't
care
be,
about that. I
there
care
won't
about
be
the
a-
school.
there won't be a lot of trees planted right in front of the school.
Okay.
Yes, I know what you're saying.
Okay.
I'm thinking along the fence line where they play lacrosse and everything. Yeah,
Between McDonald's and the entrance. Right?
yeah.
Okay.
Are the lights on automatic turn off?
So, no, they're not automatic, but,
So who's responsible to turn off the lights at the end of the game? The coach? The only reason I ask is you drive 95 at 11:30 or 12 o'clock, and Guilford has those tennis courts. They have all those lights blaring,
All the
At
time,
all hours.
all the time.
right?
2 o'clock in the
So,
morning.
and the coaches are not attuned to turning off.
the lights, again, a zoning requirement, the lights must be off. I want to say by 9:30 or 10, like, people have to be out of there. The lights go off. And it's specified in the zoning approval, and I think it's 10 o'clock on the weekend and like 9 o'clock during the week. I mean, it's automatic, done, has to be off.
So it is automatic.
The lights aren't off automatically, but they must be off according to the zoning approval, otherwise it's a violation.
Has to be off at what time?
During the week, it's earlier than the weekend. I forgot, 9:30 and 10:30 or 9 and 10, I'm not sure.
John, are you talking about the ones by the fire station in Guilford, right off 95?
Yeah.
Yeah, the right
I
hand
think
side.
those are basketball courts and in
Oh,
the
that's
summer,
course.
they haven't, it's not a residential area. There's not really any
Yeah, I
houses
know.
around there. I mean, it's right to the highway. But they have a lot of adult leagues that play on those courts all summer long.
Oh, really?
Till late. They do kids leagues during the day and in the evening and
That
then at
late?
night.
1:30 in the
Well,
morning.
maybe not 1:30 in the morning, but.
Really don't.
They're taking those courts out anyway, John, so they're check. They're putting a building there anyway, so they'll be gone. Yeah, they are.
We have the same issue with the basketball courts here for Park and Rec. You
The
know,
lights are on late.
11, 12, 1 o'clock at night, sometimes they're still on.
They're on late. I've asked Ray about that.
Tom will give you a key.
I'll take the key.
Just a switch.
John, I'll swing off one weekend.
I don't play basketball.
Oh, I'm just going to have the light.
I could
That's
shut
it.
off.
That's it. Okay. Are there any liaison reports?
The only thing I got is, negotiating teachers contracts.
Yeah.
Our next meeting is Thursday. And I can't say much more.
Anybody else? Okay, any comments from board members?
I'll jump in with a comment from the ARPA committee, actually, and that is we had our, we put out our request for applications for ARPA funds due as of 4 o'clock on September 1st. And so we now have in our Dropbox to be reviewed about $3.3 million worth of requests. I would say after having read them, not all of them are eligible. So this is against, as Leanne was saying earlier, the 2.9 million that we are receiving as a town. I think it'll be an interesting process for the committee to go through them to determine what we want to do with them. I think it's somewhere around 30 to 35 actual requests, individuals, businesses, not-for-profits. It's a real range of what came in, but our first meeting now is next Tuesday, and we'll start the process of reviewing them, and we'll ultimately have a list recommendation to go to the selectmen.
Carl, I believe you said that it would come to the board of planning.
Yeah.
Any idea what what a time frame is, when we could?
I'm guessing by the end of October, we're gonna be done, because I think they're my perspective only. There's probably a few of the applications that we would want to get more information on, bring people in, have a conversation with them. So I think from between next Tuesday and the end of October, we'll have a couple of those meetings. Then I think we ought to be ready to go.
Oh, good, because I don't want it to get too involved into the budget season.
Yeah.
And we're doing everything all at once.
Right.
Yeah.
There's one thing I'd like to bring up, and I'd like to ask Carl to seriously consider stop selling the cars with the radios in them immediately, because you've got a request through ARPA for the fire department for radios. One of those radios would definitely fit those bills, no questions asked. The other one is the exact radio that's in all your town vehicles that you could use to repair other ones. Instead of selling them and just buy new ones, why don't we save these and hang on to them? If we take a little loss on the vehicles, people want the vehicles, they're gonna get the vehicles. They don't need the radios. I think the radios gotta come out. It's
Yeah, I
insane
don't know
to
what it
sell them.
involves taking the radios out.
It's not that big of a deal. It's a lot cheaper than a new radio.
Wire comes.
Anybody else under,
I just want to ask a question about, at the last meeting, we passed $139,000 for Park and Rec with all their events. Will they follow the normal rules about bids and going out like that and come back and show us all the details?
You should be doing that, and I'll make sure of that.
Okay.
Carl, we still have the 6% incentive for a home-based contractor.
We still have a preferred vendor, yes, ordinance, yes.
The other question I had is, RFPs, going forward, when we get, projects before us, I'd like to know if they've done at least 3 RFPs. whether it's the town side or the school side.
Responses you mean.
Right, I think it's important to know, that we're getting the best value for our dollar.
Yeah. So the answer that I think that is important. There are some very specific job tasks that are hard to get 3 bids on. Now, that doesn't mean you can't RFP it.
If you RFP it, they usually would answer you back no bid.
Then what?
They would answer you back no bid.
Well, even if you only get 1 bid, at least you've gotten that bid and you've RFP'd it. So I think, but there may be, like, I'm guessing on like the splash pad, for instance, that could be difficult to get multiple, maybe I'm wrong about that, but I'm guessing it's a specialty type stuff, but it may not be.
So what they usually do in past history, I've been dealing with is, they'll say, we sent them out to the XYZ companies, 3 names. And they'll say that, these 2 companies did not give us a bid.
Yeah, but our town code requires an RFP for work over a certain amount of money. So we can't just solicit 3 bids and call it a day.
No, I understand that.
Unless we go off we have gone off the state bid list, the DAS bid list, and we sometimes can use that. I think that's adequate, because the state has done that, work for us. And there are other national companies, Sourcewell is one, that they solicit bids from specialty contractors. So some of those contractors can be used, but typically, if you're just doing job X, I agree. There should be, that's what I did with the fence, solicit 3 bids. If it's over 25, it should be just an RFP. It shouldn't be, you can solicit in addition to the RFP, say, hey, I want you to bid on this. But it should be a public bid.
You bring up a good point, because here's $79,000 worth of installation, and you've got somebody local that could have bid on it.
Any other comments from board members? Is there any public comment? Is there any public comment?
Boy, Mark Parnell.
Mark's the only one there?
Mark's the only one.
He's the only guest.
Okay. Then, because there are no comments from the chair, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Right, a second.
Thank you.
All those in favor?
All right.
Come on.